Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new episode of our podcast series. I have with me two of my colleagues, Varun Gupta. He is the CFO at Jubilant Ingravia. Varun has worked across the globe in various large organizations like Unilever. Great to have you, Varun. I also have with me my fellow partner, Abhinav Jory. He leads our digital and AI practice for consumer health and services sector. Great to have you, Abhinav. Varun, you work in a regulated industry. There are a lot of things which are driven both by the regulation, government, as well as shareholders and stakeholders. I believe I've seen that in such industries that finance do play a role much beyond typical account keeping, bookkeeping, standard stuff, and more into strategic levers. What do you think? How your role has expanded since working back in a more multinational kind of setup to a more regulatory driven environment?
Finance has evolved a lot from a traditional stewardship and a bookkeeping or a more oversight business to more insight led business, where you have to be really an active partner in driving the strategy and getting the results. So, what has changed is business partnering is on steroids. The kind of VUCA world we are in, like dollar movement or the currency per se, or the commodity movement, it the decision making has to be very accurate. You can't wait for the month end results to finalize to look into the rear view to decide for the forward view. That's not the case right now. We have to decide, and that's where finance leads the way in bringing the visibility to the business on what they are going to see in the future basis current prices movements, or do the modeling on what all sensitivities can happen. So from partnering, impact in short term and long term, especially from the product portfolio decisions. And thirdly, being the resource allocation. Uh, the risk profiles of every capital allocation is very different. The return today might not be in future. And if you see some returns high today, but in lower tomorrow, by when the capital is really allocated, so you have to take that hard calls now. And these are essentially which drives the core enterprise value, your product portfolio, your pricing, and your capital allocation discipline. So from an oversight to really an insight, while controllership, stewardship, and bookkeepings are the table stakes now, this is what makes the real difference, and that's where the bulk of the time goes in for the finance folks.
That actually that's very powerful, Abhinav. I think
Yeah,
oversight to insight as a theme, as a journey. What are you seeing with a lot of our clients? Are they following the same trajectory?
yeah. So I concur what Varun mentioned. In fact, this gives me a flavor of the CFOs who think very transformatively, very progressive, and I would very much agree that CFOs need to move to strategy execution than just focusing on performance reporting. Reporting pretty much is like a passe. And we also see that CFOs who really tend to make a dent into the progressive story of their organization, they're also a great proponent of technology adoption.
You are talking about insights, and I think traditionally that is more for business owners or business functions to kind of ask for within their teams. How is finance function proactively doing it? What levers do you have? What are you trying to do in your organization, in your setup with your teams? How are you going into that direction?
To give an example of what should be my pricing decision when the dollar is at 90 or 92 or 94, rather than taking a pricing decision of the last quarter's average, I don't think that's the right way to do when in forward view your dollar can move to an X number. So that's one example. Similarly, for the commodities, uh, acetic acid 3 years back was 800. Today it's $350. Crude volatility. Yeah, these are commodities which control roughly 60% of your value chain. So by business partnering, the finance folks then work with the sales team or the product development team. Said what should be your pricing for the next quarter? What the contracts that are still under negotiation? What should be your contract negotiation strategy? Second one is how do we really invest in technology, which can cut that decision making time or the insights time from days or weeks to hours, so that people have enough time to build a strategy on the models that can be created. Uh, Second example is in capital allocation. Yeah, there's any time number of projects where you can invest in. Every business wants their project to be on the top of the table, and then you have to be really partnering with them to understand what is the value maximization proposition and what are the basic IRRs. And that's where you really partner with them and decide what's the right for the organization.
In the world of generative AI, in the world of all the hype that generative AI is creating across the globe, where do you see finance, and do you see any tangible use case that you have initiated which is working in the organization and which you believe is delivering value not only to business but to yourself? Is your workload going down? Is your team becoming more efficient? If you can share some views on that.
So let me be very candid, Sadul. Generative AI is a very shiny word. Uh, for it to work really, we need the data systems to be all correlated across the organization. 3 4 years back, they were all data lakes which were not integrated. Uh, and at the month end, it used to be integrated where the output of one used to be the input of others. For Gen AI to really work and make a dent in a real world, they all need to be on the same platform. Where we are working on Gen AI is predicting the prices for future, which helps us in having the you know uh, contract negotiation or how my next quarter will be looking like, especially of key commodity prices. What used to take a long, and used to be manual decision, now Gen AI gives me a range of like ethanol prices or acetic acid prices, which are not on any platform. But with Gen I have a graph in place of me. That's how this might be in future. And with our industry knowledge, we know this is the range because there is a seasonality to it. Yeah, that really helps. Second Gen AI will be in terms of your currency, where you leverage on the banking networks, where they have it with their knowledge and your insights. You know what is the impact that it will be in future. Third is into your SNOP processes. What is my demand and supply? Uh, it changes from industry to industry. I have seen one end in a consumer-led goods, which it can be very, very helpful to a more stable B2B business. It is much more accurate. We know the contracts for the future. But in a FMCG business, this Gen AI can do wonders for a SNOP process or the future. Apart from that, there are operational benefits which has cut down the workload of the finance team, and that the time that has been saved can be redeployed into doing something much more meaningful and more strategic. So that's how, in a nutshell, that the Gen AI, I'm seeing the ROI coming out of it.
No, well said, well said. Abhinav, since we are working with a lot of companies, a lot of finance functions
Yeah.
around this area, are they also echoing what Varun is saying around, say, areas of importance which are P&L kind of impactful or more strategic, or they are going more tactical and day-to-day operations because this is new and upcoming or
Yeah.
emerging?
Yeah.
Where do you see the pendulum?
The maturity in the use cases, if I were to speak about finance as a function alone, the focus is now more about reporting to better reporting and insights, that to real time. And also the areas which directly gives insights about how the P&L can be predicted. Some of the use cases, what we're seeing in finance specifically is that, am I able to predict the position of the P&L 4 quarters ahead, so that I have a standing position, and I also understanding of my risk exposure to my investors and to my board as well. Now, while finance continues to transform itself because of the Gen AI, there's an uptake in the ancillary functions as well. And at EY, with the way we see it is how much of the adoption and impact is on the functions which are revenue centric. Say, for example, we can talk about sales and marketing, we can talk about R&D, manufacturing, or how much of the impact is on the cost side, which is the enterprise value function, which is finance, HR, so on and so forth. So the adaptability on and the applicability of the specifically Gen AI, and I will not limit myself to Gen AI. I would rather go on to say the possibility because of the agentic AI is far more higher now. And some of the use cases, Varun, what we also are seeing, especially in the specialty chemical as a sector, is around R&D and formulation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And second is around operation and yield optimization, which is far more closer to the plant operations. And third is the customer and commercial intelligence. These are three areas where we continue to see the work being progressed from POC to now the live products, and also the direct impact on the P&L. They're all revenue centric, very close to the business, and it matters to the CFO agent.
So, what is your view as companies progress more and more on this journey, and this is inevitable? A lot of people are going to deploy these models. What, as a CFO, would be your guardrails, safeguards as you implement many of these in your organization?
See, I'll break it into a three buckets. The risk, the financial risk. Yeah. See, any AI model comes with an underlying algorithm. It cannot be opaque. You know, we need to understand what is the logic going behind it. As long as that is understood before it's implemented, the output, you know, can be much more reliable. Second, it cannot be a decision maker. It needs a human handling. You know, AI can give you insight and recommendation, but it needs to be human proof.
So, what is our view? What are we seeing in the market, or what is our general view around AI governance?
In the matters of AI and as it evolves, I think the lens on this needs to evolve from just a functional risk to an enterprise risk. That's the first thing which we promote and also tell our clients with due respect. In addition to that, there are inherent risks which will continue to become more and more mature. For example, we all know cyber exposure is a great risk associated to any digital technology for that matter. AI just not only makes it more severe, but also it expands the attack surface. And therefore, we have seen cases where there is a sophisticated phishing, deep fake personalization of the senior execs. I think these are some of the strategic risks associated with AI, which CFOs or the executives need to discuss with their security leadership. In addition to that, we spoke a lot about data and how data becomes the base for AI and Gen AI. Model lifecycle management, which is the heart of every Gen AI utility tool, so to say product, it's also a real risk. What worked for you 6 months ago when that data mattered may not necessarily work with you right now when the context of the data has also changed. So, are the companies or organizations so mature that they understand they need to be there's a continuous monitoring on what is being built from a security perspective? Last but not the least, it is not everybody is building everything. Therefore, they are buying as well from the market, which means there's a heavy reliance and engagement with the third parties. So we buy a lot of AI tools. In buying, are we very conscious and also very observant of our contractual risks? Who owns the data? Who has a liability if my model hallucinates or there's a drift in the model? So who is liable for the outcomes? So I think these are some of the top headlines which we speak with our clients and love to put on the table saying, have you thought about this holistically rather than just thinking about it as a technological risk?
Well said. What is your message to your fellow CFOs who are probably starting or thinking about this journey? And what is your message who are investing dollars behind it and scaling on this journey?
So, for the people who are just starting or thinking to start, don't boil the ocean. Start with a particular area, get yourself comfortable or equipped with it, or your team equipped with it. That will be much more faster way to roll it out. Yeah. Second is in any AI transformation, it's 20% technology, 80% is people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
Be mindful of that. Measure the ROI very rigorously. You know, every area that you scale it up, if you want to do it in procurement or you want to do it in operations, it comes at a cost. It is taking a bandwidth, you know, so that ROI discipline around it needs to be very, very clear.
One thing which all can consider importantly, that there has to be a genuine excitement about the possibilities and the art of possible which technology can offer. And what CFOs are naturally good at is the financial discipline and the rigor around it. If that, in addition to the excitement, can be brought together with the right pragmatism, I think every organization would have a great sponsor, and can actually make them a frontier firm rather than somebody who's laggard and then is in a catching up.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening in. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with both Varun and Abhinav. So, thank you for tuning in again. Stay connected. Good to have interacted with you and looking forward to more such conversations. Thank you.